9 months pregnant, I was exhausted in ways I never expected. Carrying a life inside you changes everything: your body, your mind, your patience. But nothing could have prepared me for how alone I felt that month. We just moved into a small apartment on the 3rd floor, no elevator. The boxes had piled up faster than we could unpack, and the growing belly made every step a little harder than the last. Till I insisted on doing it myself. I wanted to prove I could handle it, even with the weight of a baby pushing against me. That day, I'd spent hours dragging heavy boxes up the stairs. My back ached, my legs trembled, and my breath came in short gasps. But when I finally pushed open the door, I thought maybe, just maybe, my husband would look up from his games and offer to help. He didn't. He was sprawled on the couch, controller in hand, headset on, completely absorbed. His friends were there too, laughing and shouting at the screen. I stood there for a moment, feeling the sting of sweat dripping into my eyes and the ache in my arms. "You look like you're just giving up," he said without looking at me, his voice sharp and casual like he was commenting on the weather. His friends laughed. The kind of laugh that doesn't belong in a home filled with an almost full-term pregnant woman. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile I didn't feel. "I'm almost done," I said, but the words felt hollow even to me. That night, I lay awake, my body restless and sore. The apartment was quiet except for the occasional bursts of laughter from the living room, where he and his friends kept playing long into the night. I wondered how the man I married could be so indifferent now. The next day was a blur of doctor appointments and preparations. My feet swelled, and I felt the baby shifting wildly inside me. I wanted to tell him, to make him see how hard this was, but every time I opened my mouth, the words got stuck. Instead, I focused on the little things: washing the nursery clothes, organizing the last of the boxes. I told myself this was temporary, that once the baby arrived, he'd change. But the truth was already sinking in. He didn't care. Over the next 48 hours, things only got worse. I tried to talk to him, to get him to help even a little, but he brushed me off or said I was overreacting. When I asked him to help carry just one box, he scoffed. "Seriously? You're 9 months pregnant. What do you expect?" His friends overheard and laughed again. It wasn't just their laughter this time. It was the cold dismissal from the man I trusted to stand beside me. I cried in the bathroom that afternoon, clutching the cold tiles, feeling more alone than I ever had. At one point, I sat down on the floor, exhausted and defeated. That's when I realized I had to take care of myself and this baby, not just physically but emotionally. I started making lists: doctor's appointments, baby supplies, packing plans. I was determined to be ready no matter what. But the tension in the apartment was suffocating. I could feel his impatience growing, see the way his eyes darted away when I asked for help. His friends made jokes behind my back, calling me lazy and saying I was slowing him down. It wasn't just hurtful, it was humiliating. One evening, I overheard a conversation through the thin walls. He was on the phone, laughing and saying things about me I never wanted to hear. Words like burden and waste of time echoed through the room. My chest tightened. I wanted to scream, to run away, but I stayed quiet. Then came the day when I pushed through the pain and carried the last of the heavy boxes up to the apartment. I was barely holding myself together, but I wanted to make it clear. I could do this alone if I had to. When I finally walked in, he looked up and said, "You look like you're just giving up." His friends laughed. Again, I wanted to disappear. That night, the weight of everything crashed down on me. I felt invisible, unappreciated, and so unbelievably tired. The days after that night blurred into a strange mix of exhaustion and quiet despair. My body was nearing its limit. Every movement felt like a battle. But what hurt more than the physical strain was the invisible weight pressing down on my heart. I tried to keep the apartment peaceful, hoping maybe he'd wake up to how much I was carrying, literally and figuratively. But the more I pushed myself, the more distant he seemed to become. He spent hours playing games, surrounded by his friends, while I was left to navigate the final weeks of pregnancy on my own. One afternoon, I was folding tiny baby clothes, tears slipping down without me even realizing it. That's when he walked in, still with that casual, careless look. "Are you really going to cry over this?" he asked, smirking. I didn't answer. What could I say? That I felt abandoned? That I was scared? That I was overwhelmed beyond words? Instead, I kept folding, trying to block out the ache. His friends were there again, snickering from the living room. I felt like a joke. It wasn't just the lack of help. It was the absence of respect, of kindness, of basic empathy. I remembered the man I fell in love with, the one who told me I was strong and beautiful. This wasn't him, or maybe it was, and I'd just been blind to who he really was. The breaking point came unexpectedly. One evening, I was struggling to carry a large box of baby supplies into the apartment. My arms shook and my breath was short, but I refused to ask for help. He watched from the couch, headset on, laughing loudly with his friends as I stumbled. "You're embarrassing yourself," he said without looking away. I paused, box halfway in my hands, and something inside me snapped. "Embarrassing myself?" I said, voice trembling but fierce. "I'm 9 months pregnant. I'm doing everything to prepare for our child. And you're sitting here playing games and mocking me?" He shrugged, dismissive. "Maybe if you weren't so slow, I wouldn't have to watch you struggle." His friends erupted in laughter, the sound cutting sharper than any words could. I dropped the box. Tears spilled over, but this time I didn't try to hide them. "I'm done," I whispered, voice breaking. "Done pretending this is okay." That night, I barely slept. I I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how we ended up here. The man I thought I'd spend my life with was turning into a stranger. I thought about the baby kicking inside me, about the life I was about to bring into this world. I needed to be strong, not just for myself, but for that little life depending on me. The next morning, I woke to silence. The apartment felt emptier than ever. Then he walked in, different. No headset, no smirk. His face was pale, eyes wide, as if the weight of the past few days finally hit him. He fell to his knees, voice cracking as he begged for forgiveness. "I'm sorry," he said over and over. "I didn't realize. I was wrong. Please forgive me." I looked at him, the man who hurt me so deeply, now broken before me. The moment was heavy with everything left unsaid. His apology hung in the air, fragile and uncertain. I could see the guilt etched across his face. The same man who had spent days ignoring my pain was suddenly vulnerable, begging for a second chance. But I wasn't sure if I was ready to give it to him. The baby kicked again, reminding me of the new life on the way and the responsibility I had to protect that life and myself. "I've been scared," he finally said, voice barely above a whisper. "Scared I wasn't ready to be a dad. Scared that everything was changing and I didn't know how to handle it. But that's no excuse for how I treated you." His words caught me off guard. For so long, I had thought it was just laziness, selfishness. But hearing his fear laid bare made me realize it wasn't that simple. This was bigger than both of us. I didn't respond right away. I needed time to process, to figure out if his remorse was real or just desperation. In the days that followed, things shifted, slowly, imperfectly. He started helping around the apartment, making doctor's appointments, even trying to put down the controller to spend time with me. But the damage lingered, like a crack in the foundation of what we had. The trust wasn't rebuilt overnight. Every small kindness was met with a shadow of doubt. Was this going to last? Was this the man who would be there when our child arrived? Then came the moment that would decide everything. The night before my due date, he stayed up waiting with me. No games, no distractions, just quiet, tense anticipation. We talked about fears, hopes, and the future. For the first time in months, I saw the man I thought I married. But would it be enough? Could we move past the pain, the neglect, the harsh words? I knew the birth of our baby would bring answers, whether it was a new beginning or the final chapter of us. The day my baby arrived is forever etched into my memory, not just for the overwhelming joy but for the storm of emotions that came with it. Labor was intense. Every wave of pain was a reminder of the strength I never knew I had. My husband stayed by my side through it all, holding my hand, whispering encouragement, tears running down his cheeks. For a moment, the games and the neglect faded into nothingness. There was only this new life, this tiny, perfect person entering the world. When they placed our baby in my arms, I felt a fierce love I couldn't explain. The world shifted. My priorities, my fears, my hopes, all wrapped up in this little bundle. I glanced over at my husband. He looked exhausted, but in a way that spoke of transformation. His eyes held awe and something softer, a quiet promise. First weeks at home were difficult, but full of moments that changed everything. He wasn't perfect. There were still missteps, moments when old habits crept in, but he was trying, really trying. He got up in the middle of the night to soothe the baby, learned how to change diapers, and even cooked a few meals. Small things, but for me, they were huge. One evening, as I rocked our baby to sleep, he sat beside me, quietly watching. "I want to be better," he said. "For you, for him, for us." His words were simple, but they carried a weight I hadn't felt in a long time. I believed him because I could see the change, not just in his actions, but in his heart. Still, healing wasn't instantaneous. I had to let go of the anger, the resentment, and the fear that had built up over months of feeling alone. It took time to rebuild the trust that had been broken. Every day was a step forward, sometimes 2 steps back. But the hardest part wasn't the sleepless nights or the endless baby cries. It was facing the reality that our relationship had been tested in ways I never imagined. I realized that love alone wasn't always enough. It required respect, effort, and the willingness to face your own flaws. There was a moment, about a month after the baby was born, when we both sat on the couch, exhausted and emotionally raw. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "Not just about how I treated you, but about who I thought I was." I reached out and took his hand. "We're both learning," I said. "This baby gave us a chance to start over." He nodded, squeezing my hand gently. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time I felt hope. Hope that the man who had once made me feel so small could grow into the father and partner I needed. Hope that the laughter, the love, and the family we dreamed of were still possible. And most of all, hope that I could forgive not just him but myself for staying when maybe I shouldn't have. 'Cause sometimes the hardest battles bring the most unexpected victories.